Next, I'm going to introduce you to Nancy. Nancy's been working diligently on the project's based IT contracts. Thank you.
No, I got all excited when they said we were going on a road show. So your antiques, you can show me them later. I'll be in the back, okay? All right. Project-based IT consultant services. Again, we call it PBITS. Where did the arrows go? Bear with me. Oh, no? Okay, I got it. All right. What we can use the contract for. This is not like HBITS. This is not time and materials. It's not hourly based. This is deliverable based. It is tied into not to exceed rates. However, the prices that you will be paying are not based on the hours. They're based on the deliverables. All right. The projects range from proprietary software and customization training to project management. Now, the customized training it can't be canned training, you know, so it's not if you want somebody to come in and teach your staff how to do Excel. It's not e-learning where you just upload the information onto the website. It would be customized training that was going to help your staff to move forward with another project. The vendors are assigned in the projects. Here it's called categories. We actually just call them lots, and we have 3 of them. I'll enter. Okay, here is a listing of what is included. I'm sorry, my throat's been bad lately. Of what's included in the contract and what's not. So anytime you need an assessment done to figure out what type of software or hardware that your organization might need, that would be a good use of PBITS. Data information management, data categorization, things along those lines. If there's another contract that the state has that you could get your service from, chances are PBITS is not the contract that you want to use. If you wanted to get some hardware, you would actually go to Umbrella for that. If it was customized hardware for a specific project, then that would be covered under PBITS. Cloud is definitely a no-no in PBITS as well, so don't even go there with us. This is, again, it's for consultant services only. There are no products allowed on this. It's not time and material. Each project can go a total of 36 months. Now, even if you can do an enhancement on the budget, all right, but if you do that, you still cannot go over the 36 months. So if you think that the project is maybe going to be a little bit less than 3 years and you want to have an enhancement in case some sort of deliverable shows up that you weren't aware of in the beginning in the scope of work, or it's something that the vendor didn't find and it's something that you didn't expect, you can put that into the contract. You have to note it in the mini bid, but it still cannot go over 36 months. If 36 months has passed and your project's not done, then 36 months has passed and your project's not done. It ends there. The good part about the PBITS contract is that all the terms and conditions are standardized. That's not to say that there's no negotiation on the not to exceed rates, or if they handed in a project plan and you wanted to fine tune it a little bit before them, those things are negotiable. However, the terms and conditions of the contract are not. You can, by the way, add extra terms and conditions that you as an agency want to have, or because of the project might need to have. We do have periodic recruitment. We're in the process of getting ready to send one out. I don't know when it's going to be finalized. The more opportunity vendors have, the better competition for you, you know. Again, there is a maximum not to exceed pricing, and normally when you send out a mini bid, the vendors do not put their not to exceed pricing. They do go a little bit lower because they know that that cost is at least 30%. The structure of PBITS is broken down into 3 lots. Lot 1 is for MWBE and small business only. It goes up to $200,000. Lot 2, there are some small businesses and MWBEs in there. However, it wasn't mandated just for them. The dollar value is a maximum of $7.5 million. And then for Lot 3, it goes up to $25 million. So dependent on the type of project you're doing and the amount of money that you think it's going to cost to do that project would depend on which lot you would send your mini bid out to. This is just an overview of the mini bid process. You develop the project documents, you know. You need to know what you're looking for. I know in the past, a lot of state agencies have left it pretty open-ended questions on their solicitations, and the vendors came in and told them what they needed. This is different. This is you telling the vendors what you need. So you're gonna, you know, you want to develop the project documents. You want to make sure you have all the internal approvals, you know. So whatever your agency has to have in place before we move forward is, before you move forward, is what you have to have in place. We do not override your agency's rules. We have an optional participation of interest form, and that can be helpful in a couple different ways. If it's a very specialized project and you're not sure how many vendors are actually going to be able to respond to your mini bid, you might want to send out the participation form to see how many could actually do it or who would be actually interested in it. It's also good if it's a simplified project and there's 100 vendors in a lot that you're sending out the mini bid to, you might want to see who has the time and energy to actually answer this at this point, so you don't get overwhelmed by looking at 100 different mini bids. I know I wouldn't want to, although we just did that, didn't we? So with 190. You release the mini bid, so whatever lot group, which is defined by the dollar amount, you choose to send it to, your mini bid has to go to every vendor in that lot group. You can't pick and choose. It's not, oh, here's so-and-so, I want to use them for this project. It does not work like that. If it's in a lot, whatever lot group it is, however many vendors are there, you want to send it out to them. Just a sidebar note, you also want to make a copy of who was listed on that, because we are continually updating that list and more people are being added on. You don't want a vendor to say, hey, I'm in lot 2 and I didn't get your mini bid. You can say, well, when were you posted? And if they were posted after the time you sent out the mini bid, that you're not required to send it to them. Actually, you don't send it to them. You evaluate the responses and make a final determination. You notify all the contractors, so you do the non-awards as well as the tentative award. You finalize the mini bid award with the contractor. You might want to sit down and do a project plan to really firm things up on the deliverables. Change your project budget and duration. I guess if you wanted to see if the vendor would go lower, but I don't really get that one. So I'm going to shut up. I really don't understand what that means. It doesn't make sense to me, because at this point in time, you really couldn't change your budget, because if you went lower, then maybe somebody else would have bid on it, or, you know. Oh, thank you. It's for enhancements. Okay, so the enhancement, I believe, goes up to 20 or 10, 20. 10% of the original budget. But again, and I had mentioned this earlier, it cannot go over the maximum lot amount. So that's all I'm going to say about that, because I've already messed that up. Now I'm going to hand it over to Mark Jolie.
Thank you, Nancy. So some people might already be saying 36 months, that's not enough time. 25 million, that's not enough money. That's okay. You can do an RFP or what other type of procurement your agency will let you do. But if it falls within the realms of what project-based outlines here, by all means, you should try and do it. We have the pre-approved vendors. We have the terms and conditions already set with them. One of the things I wanted to mention that Nancy was talking about, when you're doing your mini bid, you can include additional terms and conditions, but you can't, so long as they do not conflict with the ones that were originally set on our contract. So you might make them more restrictive, but you can't change one of ours. This is meant to be versatile for the authorized users. It's meant to be something that you'll want to use, and that's why we're doing these trainings, so that at least if you know it's out there and you say, hey, let's try this, we can do it. Having the templates available for everyone will, certainly you don't have to develop it. Normally what we do is, you take the old RFP, put a new date on it, and you start updating the things. This way here we have the templates, which we'll show you a little bit later on, and we think that it will be a really great vehicle for you to use. Once again, if it only goes to 25 million and you know yours is going to be more, please don't yell at us. This is what it is, and if you can't use it, then by all means use something else. Whether you do a longer, protracted type procurement like an RFP, or you use this document, you're still going to have to do certain things. And one of them is developing, knowing what your project is, developing the project documents, coming up with your scope. You got to determine what your budget will be based on what your scope is going to be. You're going to want to do a timeline. Deliverables, there's another big one. So I said in one of the other trainings that I've been with the state since 2006 in procurement, and I have not had one class on deliverables, and I don't know if anybody here has either. But if you know about them, let us know, because we think that it's very important. So we're going to give you a little bit about the deliverables here, but it's one of the biggest parts of this contract, I think, and perhaps all the RFPs that you may be doing, because without letting the contracting pool know what you're looking for, what is success, it's very hard for them to be successful. So we're going to talk a little bit more about these different deliverables, timelines, milestones. All of this information that you're developing at the beginning does become a part of your procurement record. So you may have experience with scopes of work, you may not. What we have here are suggestions. They're not the all-inclusive, all-exclusive list of things, but this is just to give you an idea of things that you do need to include in your document. When you're in the middle of something, you have a great idea of what you want, but putting it on paper so that somebody that's reading it for the first time can read that and understand it, and then understand what you want and what they're going to accept and pay you for, can be a little bit more difficult. And that's why we can't emphasize enough that doing the scopes and the deliverables is one of the key elements of either a mini bid under PBITS or under your own RFP document, going, to get out there to the vendor community what you want and what will be successful. Because it's terrible, you get part of the way through a contract and then, they deliver something to you and you say, no, that's not at all what I wanted. Well, you said this and it's pretty vague, so this is what we gave you, and then, So if you're very clear as much as you can be, as often as you can be, it certainly should help reduce the amount of problems that you have. You're going to list out, what our role is, what the contractor's role is. You want to just give them all the, who, what, where, whys, and whens, what's expected of them. You're going to also tell them your payment structure. And this is important because this contract is, since it is deliverable-based and not time and material-based, contractors may not understand that they're not going to get paid until you accept their deliverable. Part of their response to your mini bid is going to be a financial document which will say, I'm going to use this title at this hourly rate for this number of hours. And they're going to do that and say, okay, so for deliverable 1, I estimate that it's, my deliverable 1, I'm going to charge you, $1,000. Once they are your approved contractor and you go into business with them and you start producing things, if they complete that job in 800 hours and you accept their deliverable, they are paid that deliverable amount. If they spend $2,000 worth of hourly hours with their people and you accept their deliverable, they only get paid for the deliverable amount. And we ask for the hourly rates so is that when you are evaluating your financial document, you will see our pre-approved not to exceed rates. We've already determined that these are reasonable. They can always bid those or lower than those. But when they give you, this programmer at $150 an hour, and you look on our site and it says their programmer is only supposed to be $140 an hour, they have now done something they shouldn't do, and they are to be thrown out of your evaluation process. That is done to determine reasonableness of price, but once you determine reasonableness of price by all of the hourly rates, then those hourly rates pretty much don't matter because we now switch over to deliverable payments. Make sense? Blank stares? Okay. So when you want to get from here to there, it's pretty good to have a timeline so you know where you should be and when. Once again, here's a list of things that, that is not necessarily all-inclusive, but just a list to let you know, some of the things that you should include in your timeline. And then some of the events that you need as well. You have an award date, you do a kickoff meeting, planning meeting. This one is specifically for sort of an example we have later on. And as it said, well, I'm not sure if it's in a later one. So if you're going to have a kickoff meeting, you probably don't want to have that as a deliverable. it's expected of the vendor to come and participate. It's important for you as an authorized user to know, though, since this is a different type of payment method, it's not time and materials, it's going to be just based on the deliverable, that if you can make the deliverables reasonable and small enough as far as small from the total of your project, it will help the vendor get paid from time to time. But we don't want to have him get paid for showing up for a meeting when we're just kicking this thing off. You got to kind of use your head, think about it, talk with other people about it, and say, okay, so where should these things be? What is the deliverable going to be? What will be my acceptance criteria? If I don't accept it, how much time do I have to not accept it? You kick it back to the vendor. They then have to make changes to it. They get to submit it. How long do they have to resubmit it to you? How much more time do you have to accept it again or reject it? Once you accept that particular deliverable, then they can get paid. So let's see, ABC company showed up for the kickoff meeting. Oh, okay, go ahead and pay them. So it doesn't make sense. We just ask you to, put a little bit of thought into what the deliverables should be. It shouldn't be just one 3-year project and at the end they're going to give me this. And with deliverables also, it helps you go along your timeline to make sure you're getting where you need to go. We have these little steps, and then you get there, it's successful, they get paid. Then you move on to the next step. If you've got, 10 steps into the first deliverable, it might have been better off if you could have done it like every 2 steps and determined that that was a deliverable, because now you know you're marching your project along, and you will hopefully get to the end within the time frame. So time is money, and if you need something within a 60-day period, that's fine. If they may have to throw more resources at it, which will then increase your cost. So be considerate of the time frame that you need something. If you absolutely need it sooner, go ahead, but realize it's going to cost you more. If you just want it that sooner, maybe you can say, okay, I'm going to give them a few extra months or an extra year to do this. Maybe our timeline is too aggressive. Just realize that aggressive timelines cost your entity more money. Once again, this is not HBITS. This is not just looking for someone to come in and do staff augmentation. When you do that, you pay them, once a month. And this is not what this is about. So you have to think carefully, as I was saying before, about your milestones and or your deliverables so that these people can be paid for them at those times. They're not going to be paid every month under this contract. And then another caution that 36 months is the maximum duration of this contract. So you might say, I know I have a project that's going to take over 36 months. I can't use project-based. And if you were to call me, I'd say, wait a minute, let's think about this. So what you can do is you can take a large project and you could break it up into smaller projects. And if they make sense that we could do from here to here, that would be one. And then the information that you gain from that first project, you get as your final deliverable, which is knowledge transfer. You can take this information as knowledge transfer, put it into your next mini bid for the next phase of this project you're doing, go out, do another mini bid, and then you have up to 3 years on that one as well. So you don't have to do this huge project within 36 months or you can't use PBITS. Think about whether you can break it into smaller projects. Think about the availability of people to understand what this company has done here and can they pick it up from here and do this next part of it. Sometimes you don't want somebody coming in. Other times it really doesn't matter if you have 5 people doing this project over 6 years, so long as we have well-defined deliverables within certain periods of time and knowledge transfer so that that information can go into your next mini bid. Just another recommendation on that part, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't usually say how long something's going to take or supposed to take. You're up against a hard stop at 36 months under our contract. If you can, one of the suggestions is maybe make it, say it's for 30 months. We know that you can do a no-cost extension under this contract and extend it out to 36 months. There's nothing says that you can't do a 36-month contract, and if they get done with the deliverable sooner, you're done sooner anyway. But so that's just food for thought. Perhaps have the time shorter and then extend it through a no-cost extension. Under PBITS, there is a 10% increase that can be allowed. So that's not much, and somebody says, oh, we can't do it, we always have 50%, 100% overruns, So under PBITS, we allow 10%, and there's a caveat to that as well. Because we have the definitive lot dollar amounts, if you bid this in lot 1, the maximum amount of this entire project can only be $200,000. So if you're at $199,000 on your original project, you can't go 10% because that'll put you up over the $200,000. But if you're well within the lot that you're doing it, there is up to a maximum of 10% that could be done. Something like that has to be known in the mini bid. You tell the people in the mini bid that we are going to allow for an enhancement budget up to 10% of this project, and so here's another caveat. If they said that and the bid comes in at $199, a winning bidder, then even though you say it in your mini bid, you can't exceed that. You have room for $1,000 of a change. But there are two types of changes allowed in this contract. One is a no cost and the other is a cost. Both of these documents we'll look at later, and both of these documents have to be signed by both parties. Answer your question, sir? Okay. Being clear with your deliverables is just ever so important. And sometimes what you have to do is have somebody else read your deliverables that doesn't know about your project and say, does that make sense to you? I remember sometimes in school they would say, okay, write a description of how to, light a cigarette. And then so the teacher's up there and they're going to do everything they can to, misinterpret what you say. And say, put the cigarette in your mouth. They put the whole cigarette in their mouth. Oh, no. So you have to modify it, Okay, put the cigarette. Now light it. And then they light the end near their lips. You know what I mean? All kinds of things. So you have to make sure, take a simple situation like that and then make sure that you are very precise about what you're saying and that everybody that reads it knows what you want and that you can have good acceptance criteria. They know what they need to prove to you or need to provide to you to accept this document, and then they can get paid. It makes sense to tie the value that you're going to put on the deliverable to the value of that deliverable to your entire project. Kickoff meeting, they want 50%. No, but when it's a very big portion of your entire project, maybe that will weigh more than the other parts of it. Depends on how many deliverables you have, over what period of time, and how important they are. That's just consideration for you to think about. We have no way of, nor do we want to police this, but it just makes sense. Look at how many people at home, they hire a contractor to do your kitchen and they want 50% up front, and then they, come in, they tear it down, and you never see them again. There's no way to get no way to get the money back, and you already gave them all that money. So this is just part of a way of paying them as they go for acceptable work. And then, if possible, the last recommendation is just, if you can wait most of it towards the end, that's great. You should. That way there, it gives them an incentive to complete your project and receive payment, the bigger parts of their payments. You may not be able to. These are just suggestions. This is just a picture of a Gantt chart that we recommend you can do if you notice that there's various steps and they are not just one after the other. They can be running simultaneously to get you from the beginning of the project to your end deliverable. This is just another tool to help you see your timeline and your deliverables. So payment schedules are tied in this contract to deliverables only, not the amount of time they put in. That's why it's kind of helpful when you're doing your timeline, milestones, and deliverables to see what makes sense. How much effort is going to have to be put into this? Can we pay them sooner? Can we make another deliverable in here that will allow us to pay them upon their successful completion of that deliverable? This contract allows for withholding or retainage. You can withhold up to 20% of each deliverable. And if you're going to do that, you must state so in the mini bid itself. You're putting the people on notice that, I'm due $1,000, I'm only going to get $800 at that time, and then I'm going to get the rest of it when the completion of the project is done. That increased their costs, because if they put $1,000 into it, and they're only going to get $800, that's $200 in salaries or something that they're going to have to get somewhere. So it's a cost of money to them. So it's only fair to let them know that you're going to do that. If you're not familiar with retainage, by all means, you don't have to use it, but if you have used it, if you feel in certain circumstances it's important to use, by all means, it's available for you to use. One of the other features of retainage is you don't have to pay them all at the end. You can put information into your mini bid saying that, you know, we're going to have 6 deliverables and we're going to withhold 20% of all of them. But deliverable 4 is important, and if you bring that in sooner than this date, we will then pay you all of the retainage that we've already held at that point of the 4th deliverable acceptance, rather than waiting till the end. Sometimes that's just an additional incentive for them. It's not costing you any more money, but if you say to them that if you do this, you know, it gives them some of their money sooner, and that's just another option that you can use. Not something that you have to use, and if you're not using retainage, it doesn't apply. Like with an RFP, if your agency does them or your entity does them, you have to tell the people how you're going to evaluate them. With this contract, we have a maximum technical score. First of all, let me say all the evaluations are done on the best value. So that's technical along with financial. The one with the highest score is your tentative awardee. We have in this contract that the maximum technical you can have is 70, which then leaves 30% for financial. And if you can determine enough specifics of mandatory requirements that this vendor has, you can have 100% cost. So anybody that passes your first 15 items is in the pool, and then the evaluation is done strictly on cost. That is allowed also. So it's maximum 70% technical, all the way up to 100% of cost, if you can define it. It's hard to do, but if you can do it, it is allowed under this contract. Think of this from the contractor's side. When they read this document, your mini bid document you're sending them, do they know what you want? Do they know what they're expecting of you? They also know that every other contractor out there that's getting this mini bid is getting the same thing. So they may, hey, we're all confused, or they may say, I know exactly what they want, and I'm going to nail this one. But from our side of the purchasing table, it's important that we be clear on everybody's roles and responsibilities. We want to make sure that they're aware of any risks that we're aware of. What are our expectations? We want to define all the deliverables and the milestones of the project, and we want to give them a clear picture of what's expected of them when they submit that deliverable to us, and what we're going to do for acceptance criteria, and then what happens if it doesn't get accepted. Because they might put all this time and effort into this deliverable, get it to you and say, oh God, we're going to get paid this week, hooray! And then after 10 days we say, no, we didn't like it. Well, why? What's your criteria? And if it isn't well defined, then that's a case for confusion and possible litigation. And if we can do this beforehand, thinking about it and being as clear as we can so that everybody knows where we stand and what's expected of us, it will certainly help your project go smoother. So here's an example of a scope of work. Yes?
You don't have standards for types of projects where you would have like a project, a normal type of project would have, a normal set of deliverables, and then you'd want, to include, include those parameters you were saying at certain points, to pay them at certain points, and also to have the retainage at a certain amount as a kind of standard thing.
So in my experience, there's no such thing as a normal procurement, because they all vary so much. And I'm not trying to make fun of you, but so what we have here is a list of certain things to consider. So the honest answer is no, we don't have something like that says, here's a list of deliverables. Here's a list of acceptance criteria. Here's a list of, because every project's going to be different. Other than that, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, you can call us, we can talk with you about it, we can perhaps, find other experts that know more than we do that can help you, but as far as just having something, we have on our website, which we may show you, is the templates of the different documents we have. That helps you with the documents only, so you don't have to create something, but we don't have a normal this A to Z type of thing to happen. We're giving you step by step here, like 1 to 8, how to use the PBITS, things to consider, and like I say, the scope and the deliverable is just so important in this, but can I give you anything? Do we have anything? We don't.
If you give a 10% retainage, for, you know, that's a reasonable jumping off point? Or why would you give them a retainage at this point? Or why would you want to, you know?
So in general,
more
retainage,
things out of this
yeah.
manner?
So in general, you know, retainage is something that is a way for you to provide an additional incentive to the vendor to complete the job in a timely manner. Right, but you also might find that there aren't a lot of contractors that can get paid only 80% of their costs that they're putting out there, so you might be narrowing your field when you do that. I've worked on one contract where there was retainage, and it was a nightmare to keep track of, just because of the payment process, what you're withholding. They send in another invoice, when do you pay that, you know, and all that documentation. Doesn't mean you shouldn't use it, I'm not saying that, but it is an option to use in these contracts. We put it in there, and we can talk about this more at another time. You know, you can send us an email and we'll talk about it with you, but what I'm presenting here to you is just that it is an option, the retainage part, and the purpose of it is to help them to get to the end quicker, and then they can get more of their money, because they're going to pay them by deliverables, which is different from what they're used to getting paid monthly on whatever effort they put in. And then we're going to withhold some of that and say, okay, the sooner you get done, you can do it, you know, you can return retainage at any point you want to. You just must specify it in your mini bid. Sometimes it's held all the way to the end. Sometimes it's held to a key point that you have a key deliverable you want, but it's just a tool, and we don't have and that's one tool of the entire list, and we don't, you know, this is what our list is. You know, this is what we're telling you. These are things to consider. Yes?
If the maximum term of this is 36 months, do we have any recourse if the vendor seems to be lagging in hitting their deliverables on time? Are we able to ask them to bring in more skilled resources? Because that has been an issue for us with PBITS.
She wanted to know if there was anything in this contract that can encourage the contractor to bring in more resources or better skilled resources to complete the contract on time if it's slipping. So one of the things you can do in this contract is you can, at any point, you can end the contract for convenience if they're not doing something. I mean, you could have a meeting, you could call them in for a meeting and say, listen, this isn't happening the way we want it to, you know, we want more resources, well, we don't have more resources, or it'll cost you more money. You say, we can't pay you any more money, this is what you agreed to, this is what we agreed to. You can decide to terminate that contract and walk away from it. And then you would have to rebid it, though, from the point that you are going forward. Sometimes just the notion that you're thinking about doing that might get them to commit to more resources or better resources. You know, sometimes you do get less than the resources you think you need, the quality of the resource you need to do the project, but he also isn't going to get paid till, he or she isn't going to get paid until they get to that deliverable. If anybody has other suggestions of what you can do, but go ahead, Mark.
Remember that they're only getting paid for success. So if they're not hitting their timelines, if they're not providing you a deliverable, they're not getting paid. So that's your incentive. If they're not performing, they're not getting paid. So then you can kill it for convenience, you can kill it for breach, you can kill it for whatever reason. But if they're not performing, they're not getting a paycheck. They can submit all the invoices you want. But until you sign off on the deliverable, they don't see any money. So we shouldn't be getting C and D level assets. We should be getting A and B level assets on this.
Then you also have to actually stick to your guns and end the contract, because you do have a hard timeline of 36 months, and after that you can't go past that. So, and that's why if you have smaller deliverables, we mentioned before that perhaps you can keep moving it along to the point where they are successfully meeting this deliverable, getting paid, meeting this deliverable, getting paid, meeting this deliverable, getting paid. That moves your project along as well if you can do it in that fashion as well. Did you have anything that you can suggest to the room that was partially successful, or you?
No, based on experience with PBITS, my concern is that will the contractors come with resources that are capable of doing the job, or will they just bid to get a contract?
And we won't know until we try.
Right, you won't know, but there's also a portion in here where you can check references. Was it on time? Was it on budget? That sort of thing. Of course, I don't know people that give references for, well, of course, you know, that people are going to say, no, they were terrible, you know, but, and you never know when someone, you put someone as a reference. Yeah, I'll give you a good reference, and then there's something.
Chapter reference is very different than HMIS. HMIS is staff augmentation. You're paying for a body to do a body of work. And they get paid on an hourly basis. You approve a payment monthly or monthly. Here you have a project deliverable. It's to accomplish this, and they don't get paid until they accomplish your deliverable. That's the pressure on them. They're not gonna keep working every day and not get paid. So the deliverable payment method is really, is the incentive for them to put the right people on it. If it's going slower than they had planned, again, they put a dollar amount on a deliverable, not a number of people, then you're going to pressure them to add additional resources in order to meet your time frame and meet your deliverable, and then get paid. So this is really a different contract than HBIS with totally different management.
So when we do the project timeline, should we be more aggressive in terms of defining the deadline for each deliverable? My concern is that every project has something to do. And so chances are they're not gonna hit their deliverable right on time. I just don't want it to go 6 months beyond, because that affects the rest of the entire project.
Right, and you'll control that, you'll meet with the vendor, you'll make sure that they're putting the work effort into it. You might need to make an adjustment because something might have changed on your end. And if it hasn't changed and you feel that they should be able to meet your needs, you put pressure on them to add resources, do what they need to do, and then give them a time frame for that deliverable, and then have a discussion there where they're not going to get paid if they don't give you, and they're not going to move forward with the project either. So I think that the deliverables here might give you the ammunition you need to hold a contract and speak to the buyer and make it better.
And also with HBITS, I know that some of the things I've heard, I haven't hired anybody under HBITS, but I just know that as an agency, the process may be cumbersome to you, and then once you finally get someone and you find they're not working, you can either accept that level of mediocrity, or you can go through the process again. And sometimes, you know, that's a hard pill to swallow, either one of them. So, hi.
Are constrained in their time frames outside of the 36 months, because we have other agencies where we're doing work to meet needs that they've specified. But if the deliverables keep shifting forward and you know, you really need to do something to get that on a timeline if you're beholden to another agency for your work, you know, otherwise, you know, 3/4 of a project is worth nothing. And if you have to start over again, you may not be able to meet the timelines that have been specified, for example, by SFS, you know, because we have outside agencies that determine when our work has to be done. So there's a lot of risk to the agencies here, and the harm ultimately could come on the agencies and not just on the contractor.
Understood. But a lot of what's required that sometimes isn't done at the agency level is keeping on top of the contractor and managing your contract. I've got 53 contracts, you know what I mean? I understand it. Everybody has a lot of extra work to do, but that's the only thing you can do. One of the things you can do, as Mark said, if you decide you're going to kill that project, if you've gotten the knowledge transfer you're supposed to at the end of each deliverable, you can rebid it. This is a fairly quick rebidding process. You still have to go through the evaluation as well. And I know you have time constraints, but that's the only suggestion we have for you. We don't have, there was no magic wand that came with this contract. It's a little bit quicker for you to do it if you can utilize it, but then you have all these other items that you can't get around, like the 36 months. They have to stay within the lot. You can only do 10%, you know, budget creep. If you stay within the lot, you can do retainage, those types of things, but.
Make an agency, an estimate, or an idea.
From the mini bid process to award. So for lot one, there's a minimum time frame of 5 days on the street. that's really not necessarily realistic for a lot of difficult projects, but if it's for something that's a very cut and dry, that most of these contractors have somebody that can come in or a team that can come in and do it for us, it's really not hard for them to respond. But you also have to consider, normally you have question and answer periods, but if it's something cut and dry, you may not need to have that question and answer period. You may have a pre-bid conference. You can't certainly do that with questions and answers and pre-bid within 5 days for a lot 1 project. So if it's something that is very short, are very clear, I should say, that, there's a lot of programmers out there that can do this, or a lot of consultants that know this. This is right up what they do all the time. Come in and do data categorization for you. You have a small amount of data you need categorized, or whatever it happens to be, you can use the minimum time frames. It's 5 days for lot 1, 10 for lot 2, and 15 for lot 3. Those are business days. On the other hand, if you're doing a fairly complex project, you've got to give them the time to respond. And we've had a few complaints. We did poll some of the users 2 weeks ago, and their biggest complaint was, I don't have the staff, but to go out and find the resources, I need time, and I only had X number of days, and I couldn't do that, so therefore I couldn't bid on the project. So we know that it takes time for them to develop their plan of what they can do, what kind of resources do they have available, where are they now, will they be available when this project goes forward, that sort of thing. So you really have to be reasonable. Although we have really short lead times in there, that's really for the unique projects, but it's there if you need it. Realize if you do a mini bid and you put an enormously short lead time on it till you want them back, you're probably not going to get anybody. Then guess what? You can either go back out with giving them more time, or you can do a longer request for proposal type of thing. Sorry. We think that this is a good product. We really do. We think this new suite of contracts is going to help a lot of people. It's not going to help everybody. But if we can think about it in new ways, like breaking up the whole project into deliverables, and at some point, we know we're going long, and you can stop the project, take that knowledge transfer, rebid it, and then, complete the project if we're getting close to that 36 months. Or if you decide sometimes when you have someone come in and look at your data or look at your process or whatever you're asking them to do for you, they find out, oh, look what we found. And it totally changes the scope. With a 10% change, you really can't do that. So you would probably need to end it at that point and then rebid the entire thing. So, but we also know that this is quicker than if you did a full-blown RFP. Not for everyone, but if you can, we think it's a great tool. Yes, sir. Yes, if you'd like to come up, you can continue my... No, but that's right. So you as an authorized user are only required to go to the website and use the mailing list, the emailing list that is out there for the date that you send it out there. As we, I think we're on our 7th periodic recruitment now, so we keep adding contractors to it, but you only have to go to those. It will not be listed in the contract reporter because these are already pre-approved vendors with all the qualifications that they needed to get on our contract, so only the ones that are in that lot are sent the mini bid. There's a document that Nancy had mentioned before. You can send it out saying, we're going to do this contract with this is the scope. Are you interested? Because some people might be right up their alley, and other people, they say, oh, we'll never do that type of contract. Then, if you send out that document beforehand, you only have to send it to the people in your lot that responded affirmatively to that. If they didn't respond at all, you don't have to send it to them. Or if they sent back saying, no, we don't do that type of work, you don't have to send it to them. So that could narrow your pool that you send it to. But there's somebody else from the outside, if I was to send it to you because you're in that lot and you send it to a friend who's not on this contract, he is not allowed to respond to that. It's only the people within that lot on the day that, that were authorized to receive mini bids on the day that that mini bid was sent out. Yes. Yeah, subcontracting is not prohibited in this contract, correct. So we've all had time to read this scope of work. There's a lot of information here about something that somebody needs to be done. And if we go to the next slide, we simply kind of look at the same information, but in a different way. Did we go too far? Yeah. So, it's kind of like if you can go from the first paragraph to something like this, it organizes your thoughts and puts out there some of the things that will help you perhaps define what you really need to do and look at, how you want to explain this to your vendor pool as you go forward. Next one. Nope. Okay, number 2. That's okay. It was fun. Yeah, we saw you pointing to the people in the back with that infrared pointer, Nancy. So we had a chart before that had the 8 steps. That was step number 1, kind of getting your ducks in a row and being able to explain to everybody what you want. You don't necessarily have to do that and be completely done with that before you start the next steps that we're talking about. These can be done simultaneously. You have to get all the approvals that you're going to need. We recommend that you adhere to all of your own statutory requirements, your procedures of our contract, your internal policies and procedures, any other types of budgetary requirements, B11E4s, the ITIRs, anything else that you have to have before you're allowed to go forward is done, as we say, as a second step. And then you have to adhere to any of the federal, state, and local statutes as applicable. When you get federal money, they also have requirements that you have in there. As a third step, this is an optional step. This is where you can send out this document. It's just a 2-page document that says, are you interested? Here's the scope. You got to give them enough information so they know whether they can do it or not for you. You may or may not want to do this. It's totally up to you. If you do it, you'll see if you got, okay, I got 15 people that are coming back saying they can do it. And then you only have to send your mini bid to those 15 people. If you get 0 responses, then maybe you have to look again at what you're asking for and maybe the pool. We never know when we put out a solicitation if we're going to get enough people to do everything that all of our authorized users need you to do. But we have a pool that's out there. So we're also going to be opening up for periodic recruitment from time to time. This is a 3-year contract with 2 additional 3-year extensions at our level. So there is an opportunity to get more and more vendors on here that may have more and more or varied types of experience. We don't know. You open the door and you put out the solicitation and hope that they come through, you get qualified people. Sending out this document, if you have time, go ahead, send it out. It's an email. The document is very simple to fill out, provided you give them enough information of what you're going to be asking them about. Send it out to them, tell them you want it back in so many days, and then you use that as your new bidder list. Within a particular region? Okay. Yeah. Step number 4 in our diagram was releasing the mini bid by notifying the contractors. So there's a lot of work in between sending out your mini bid participation, because now you have to fill out your mini bid document. You have to make sure you have all of your approvals. You have to get your internal approvals for the document itself. You have to have help from hopefully a project manager, definitely from technical people within the program unit, that everything is, it says what it needs to say. Here are the dates as well. As I told you, 5 business days, 10 and 15 business days. Those are bare minimums. We highly recommend you consider logical time frames rather than just these bare minimums. There is a Excel document on our website we will show you shortly that you just simply copy and paste, put it into your email browser and send it off to those people. If you get a bounce back, let our contract manager know that this address may be wrong, and you can either reach out to the vendor yourself if you want to. I mean, we just, sometimes you can just Google the company and find out, or you can come back to the contract manager. If we do that, we should be able to get you a good email address within a 24-hour period, so you'll be able to send it to them as well. So step 5 was evaluate the responses and make your final determination. Lot 2 is going to have over 100 vendors in it, we hope, by the time we're done with this first go-around. That's a lot of responses to go through. There's nothing we can do if you have to go through 100 of them. You're required by the terms of the contract to send it to everybody that's in that lot, and if they all respond, you're going to have to go through and do your evaluation with all of them. Evaluation documents are always to be completed prior to the opening of the mini bids. They're probably going to come back via email, so you may want to have some kind of mechanism where somebody won't open those emails. You'll have a special email box where they'll go to, so that that they won't be open until the close of that time frame that you gave them to get the responses back to you. This next step about rejecting anybody that their hourly rates exceeded the rates that are on our contract. If you have the time and you want to, you can go through it, but you also, well, So it's a double-edged sword. If you wait till the end and you get through and say, okay, here's my tentative awardee, and then you go and check the contract not to exceed rates and they're over it, they're thrown out, and then you gotta, go to the second one. Do you want to spend the time going through this, checking the hourly rates for 100 of the people if you got 100 of them in? I'm not going to tell you which way to do it. It does have to be checked at some time. If they're not to exceed rates that are on our contract posted on our website for your use, if their dollar amounts for their project manager was, $150 on hours and they charge you $200, then that you're supposed to reject them altogether because now they've exceeded the not to exceed rates. They are allowed to go below that rate. Don't know if any of them will, but they are allowed to go below that, and you should check that as part of your evaluation process. Once again, we had said before, reference checks about, whether were they able to complete the project, that they completed on time, was the project on budget, and did it meet your final expectations. So sometimes that falls on the authorized user or the person who did that contract, because if they weren't clear on what they wanted to get out of it and say, well, yeah, he finished and we paid him all, but we really didn't get what we wanted, so it's, shame on them for, not being as clear as they could be. I'm not saying it's easy, shame on them. It's not easy, but we know that sometimes taking the time up front to be really nitpicky about things, to be very precise about what we want, what does success look like, makes it so much easier on the other end. Phew, I'm glad we put that in there. OGS has specific insurance requirements for the 3 lots. We are responsible to evaluate and accept their insurance. However, we know that insurance is expensive to the to all companies, but especially on the smaller companies, it has bigger impact. So for lots 1 and 2, we told them that they only had to have their commercial general liability and their auto insurance, workers' comp and disability insurance at the time of award. There is a matrix we will show you that if you have your tentative awardee and you look at their name on our insurance matrix and it's all green, you're good to go. Insurance is not going to hold you up. If there's something that says red, time of first transaction, what that means is that they don't have to get the tech E&O and the crime insurance because that's an additional expense to them if they're in lots 1 and 2 at the time in order to get a contract. But in order to complete your contract, it is a requirement of our contract. So if you get on our site and it says, tech E&O is red and crime is red, you need to reach out to the vendor and to us and say, okay, this is our tentative awardee. He needs to get this into us. Let us know when you've finished evaluating it. And then when we have that information from them, we will then turn it green on the site and then you're good to go. You should not start your project with a vendor who does not have all the appropriate insurance in place. Aside from that document, you as an authorized user, based on your project, are allowed to increase the amount of insurance you require them for this project. If you increase something that we had or you require something else that we didn't have, verification of that insurance and those requirements is on you, the authorized using agency. We will be totally responsible for anything in our contract, but if you have additional limits or additional types of insurance that you're requiring, that is up to you to determine that they have it before you go forward with that contract. Yes, ma'am.
That additional insured, are they going to put the state or the agency?
The additional insured information, I believe, includes the people of the state of New York and anyone authorized to use the contract. So we believe that's covered. Anything else?
Mark, were the insurance requirements adjusted, or did they remain the same as the original contract?
We did not change any of the limits in the contract. We did make a change in the way we stated things. So from the original solicitation, you may not be asking this, so shut me down if you're not. The dollar limits are still the same for the lots 1 and 2. Lot 3 has a higher amount for the general commercial liability. Everybody has the same for tech E&O when it's required of them. So the insurance requirements in their contracts as they stand today are the same as the solicitation had required it. Okay? Nancy, would you like to continue? Okay.
All right, with step 6, basically, I think this is where I left off a little bit before. You need to notify everybody whether they got an award or not. All right, and then you finalize the mini bid award with the contractor. Here, this is where if you want to negotiate with the tentative awardee, so that both of you really have a very clear understanding of where the deliverables are, what the projects are, what your expectations are, what your staff is going to do, what their staff is going to do, what their expectations are. It all gets written down. And if it does get written down, you can actually put it as part of the contract as well, so it becomes binding. All right, once you're in agreement, you proceed with the final documents that are required as part of the mini bid as well as with your agency. So whoever sign-offs that you have to get and things of that nature, you do. As with all mini bids, it does not have to go down to the Attorney General or to OSC. Oh, this is the one that gave me so much problems before. So here we go. You can change your project budget and duration, which is making adjustments with the PBITS. You can increase the budget. We said that the enhancement cannot be more than 10%, but that 10% cannot exceed the total maximum value of whatever particular lot group that mini bid is in. We do have an enhancement request template at your convenience, and again, in order to use that, it has to be noted in the mini bid. You can't just decide because something came up that, well, we need to do an enhancement at this point in time. And then the no-cost change request, if the project wasn't for the full 36 months and you needed to extend the time a little bit because the deliverables were not being deliverable in a timely fashion or just a little bit lagging, you could do a no-cost change request to add on additional time. That brings you up to the 36 months. You just can't go over it. And you can get these forms at the site listed there. Okay, moving on to the next one. Document the project. You want to tell the story, what started, what went on in the beginning, when you issued the mini bid, if there was a pre-bid conference, you want to have sign-in sheets. You know, you have to get all the prior approvals beforehand. If you rejected any bids, why did you reject those bids? Blank solicitation documents, you wouldn't think that you would receive them, but we did for the PBITS. It was amazing. The questions and answers, you want them documented, everything, you know, from start to finish. I'll go through them. The evaluation instruments, again, they needed to be done before the mini bid was published. Completion of the score sheets that the evaluators from your agency filled out. The bid tabulation, the bidders list, reasonableness of price, awarded bid, proposals received. If you have less than 3 bids and you decide to choose one of them, you can do that. You just have to justify why you did that. Any contractor correspondences, you want to have them as part of the procurement record, rejected bids with notification, the contract, and then any disclosure forms. Basically, we're here to help. You know, if you have any questions, you can call me. My number is on our website. And, you know, we'll help you. That's what we're here for. We're here to help. So if you have any difficulties, questions, concerns, whatever, you know, feel free to give us a call. Any questions? Yeah, Mark.
Could you take them to the website and show them the landing page?
Well, why don't you come up and can you go to the website?
Sarah should have opened that for us.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely. The question was, do we have any samples of how the contract is being used?
No. I said, but were there any references to how MWE would be engaged in these contracts?
No, we did not discuss that. However, if the MWBEs would be engaged as anybody else with the project that the agency wants them to have, if it's a lot 1.
Okay, so the question I got comes out of that. Are MWBs be treated before another contracts where they're close enough to hire you still to use it?
So say the question again?
The question I'm asking is, right now, most contracts, if there's an MWB that's close enough, but they're still higher than the other contractors and they're an MWB, we can use them because they're with, you know, a small amount above. Is that still used in this contract?
No. Lot 1 is specifically set aside for MWBE and small businesses. And there's a lot of MWBEs and small businesses in Lot 2. But no, it goes by best value. So just because an MWBE submitted a proposal and you like their proposal, unless they want it fair and square, but you can't say, oh, this is an MWBE, this guy is, and I want to use this one. You can't do that.
But you can put in 5 points of the technical.
Yes.
5 points of the technical evaluation.
So that would be that's
Towards,
five,
specifically towards an MWB.
That's what I was wondering. I thought there was something like that, because I know when we did our tab, you know.
I know agencies have had their own rules about how to do things, but state finance law says this, and we go by state finance law. So state
We just
finance
have to
law
put
says
the 5%.
the 5% can be used, 5 points can be used.
Okay.
If 5
So
points
we are
can be
using
used,
something that helps.
Yeah, it's 5% of the technical score, not of the whole score.
Right, I know, 65.5.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
May I add something to that? If you're gonna use a prime, if the quantitative factor is relative to a prime contract, so if the MWB is gonna be a prime, the quantitative factor will apply, okay? It depends on how the procurement goes out. These are not under diversity practice or any of the other best value procurement models. But if it is a best value contract, the agency has the ability to be able to determine what is best value.
Yes.
As opposed to just looking at straight costs.
Yes.
So the gentleman said if it costs more, that would be a disqualifier. Since it's not a low bid contract, the agency has the discretion to be able to say, we determine this to be best value. Unless you're saying that this is now a low bid contract, and best value is only limited to things that you've identified in the contract terms and conditions already.
Yeah, I believe that in any solicitation, you have that right not to take the lowest cost. But then the justification that goes along with that and the possibility of being audited and not being accepted, I think is, you wouldn't want to go that route.
Determines their own method when they prepare their mini bid.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if your agency, sir, you want to use your own methodology, as long as it's okay under the terms and conditions of the contract, you can do that. Somebody else might do something else. There are MWB goals on the contract, and they're within the template. There's instructions on how you illustrate what the goals are. There are contract goals if you want to increase those because your agency has higher goals. You can certainly do that, and you just can't go lower than the goals that were placed on the contract. So that's kind of all, developing your evaluation and your criteria are all part of what an agency would do when they create their mini bid. And I think when we went through the how to use, some of those options are all within the template, advising that you might want to consider this and provide this information to your bidder.
So you guys, that's a great question. Not sure if we can have Karen on that, so we might want to keep that.
It's up to the agency's discrepancy. Discretion. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Right, so once a contract is awarded to a vendor, how is the invoicing method? How does that work? Do you assign them a number, contract number? Is it entered?
You
as
would need to
purchase
call the contract manager, which is myself, and I would assign a contract number, and then you would go into SFS and set it up the way you would normally do it, under TNT, as the audit type, because it's not going down to OSC for approval.
So would it be a purchase order, contract purchase order?
I believe you put it in as a contract, and, yeah,
Yeah, you set it up as a contract in SFS, and then you issue purchase orders for that fiscal year's amount that, to be spent for that fiscal year. And then at the beginning of the next fiscal year, once the budget is approved, then you will put in another purchase order if there's more to be done on it.
Will we get the number from you?
The particular vendor contract number, yes, because there's the nuance with the EE1 changes in SFS. We now have letters at the end of our contract, with one other contract I'm aware of, and then that needs to change from like an AB to an AC if you use that same vendor again. That way their OSC can track your agency with that vendor with that particular contract and so on and so forth with that, all the agencies.
But that would be with agencies that are not. That's correct. But we still use our methodology that we found.
Are you an agency or are you a,
We're with NICIP. So NICIP does not use SFS for our.
so I would recommend that you still come to us for this letter.
The letter, but now I'm talking about when we
The
create.
contract, yeah, you would, yeah, so if you don't use SFS, Right, then what we just told her does not apply to you.
I just want to make sure.
Then you would have to determine, okay, what are we gonna have to do for
CPOs and MVPOs.
internal purposes?
So
yeah.
we still create a contract that's ours, and that's who we use. I just want to make sure the same way.
Yep. And any municipalities might be your school district, same thing. So her answer was for like a state agency that deals with SFS or non-SFS at this time.
I'll go
Okay,
hit the website.
then I'll stay here. All right, good.
Where you want to start? Do you want to do
Let's start up. Let's do it together,
Let's do it
Nancy.
together, all right, open up your Word
Together.
document.
That last page was the landing page for our contract, and there was the different places that you could go into. She went into the very first one, the award document. That just lists all the different contractors that are in there, some information, Nancy's name and phone number is there, her email address. And then if you scroll down further, you'll have just the names of the contractors and just some pertinent information you always get from us about the contractors. You might be looking for someone. Yep. So if you go out of here and then go into I don't even think we want to go into the next document, we'll just talk about it. Contract updates, when there is an update to it, this is posted here as well as going out under the purchaser's notification system. Those are there, we don't need to look at those. Right now, the only thing we have there is when we're doing, adding supplemental awards. Contractor information, you probably don't need this until towards the end of your procurement, but it's here. We have, telling you what lots they're participating in, what their contract number is, whether they're a minority, woman-owned business, small business, STVOB, federal ID number, New York State vendor number. There are some hyperlinks on the right-hand side. If you click on the top one, that says contact information.
This is also where you'd find the insurance matrix to find out if the vendors were in total compliance with all of their insurance that was required.
Yeah. So she spoke out of turn, so
I
maybe
did.
you should sit down. I thought we were going to do well together. And no, stay
don't, I
here,
don't.
stay here. I'm closer to the seats than you are. Right
Yeah.
there in the middle where it says insurance matrix. Go ahead and click on it, or go out of turn. What else you want to do, Nancy?
Well, that was important. I didn't want it to leave my head.
So as you see, there's green and there's red. So if the vendor that you have, a selected vendor, has green all the way across, then you know that you can go ahead and not worry about the insurance because OGS has already confirmed with them that they have it. It's up to date. Insurances expire every year. So we've got a whole bunch of people we have to keep going after getting things. January 1st was a big date for a lot of companies expiring insurance. The ones so do you see this one? The CGRT has the red underneath the general commercial liability expired on the 1st. It means either we don't have it in yet or we haven't completed our review of it yet. And that'll turn green with a new expiration date when it does get reviewed. The ones that say time of first transactions, they were lot 1 or lot 2 vendors. They were not required to have that insurance at the time to get a contract. But if you're going to do a transaction with them, they have to turn that into us. And if you at some point you can ask maybe your top 5 vendors, say, do you have your insurance complete? You could look on here and you know that they don't. You can say, do you have your insurance complete with OGS? You might want to start that process. We're going to recommend to our people in the lots 1 and 2 that perhaps they want to look into this because we know it's a long process. If you're a company who's never had techie and crime, it's a very long process for them to get it. But if you start when you're starting to get mini bid requests with your insurance agent, your broker, whatever, then they can get the ball rolling and it should reduce the amount of time it will take them when they eventually have to purchase it. But if you say, I want to do business with you, but you don't have your techie and crime, it could be 60, 90 days till they get that. So we know the checking the insurance properly is a long process. So
How is it, like, if they expire, say, how long do you guys do back up? The insurance company?
So it depends how quickly they get it to us. I think that they can get an accord document to us within a short time. I think it's 5 business days after the end date of that. But certain other information is, so it all depends. If they change their policy number, then all the other documents we've already looked at that we've already approved, we have to get new documents with a new policy number on it with the correct language on it and that sort of thing. So it can be a very long process, but if it's just a renewal of the same one and that's all we need is an accord, it's a short process. Anybody that needs techie, if they're starting to get it from the day you tell them we want to hire you, it could be a long process.
And some of the vendors too are taking note that we're taking the insurance a lot more serious and we're looking deeper. And so what they're doing is keeping track of it, where before they didn't realize that it lapsed unless we contacted them, because their insurance, their brokers don't contact them and say this lapsed. So now they're starting to keep track of it on their end as well. There's at least, there's a fair amount that have told me that they were doing that. So the time shouldn't really be that significant.
For the renewals.
Yes.
You want to back out? Where would you like to go now, Nancy?
Well, we only have about 10 minutes left. Well, did you go into the price list?
I started to, but then
I
someone
cut you off?
preempted me to go into the
Yeah.
insurance, and that's fine. 'cause
Well, then the
insur-
price list is next in importance.
No, she's
No,
the one
me.
that started it, yeah. So each vendor that's out here has their price list of the titles, the description of what that title does, the minimum qualifications, education or certifications, the minimum number of years, and then the hourly dollar rate. You'll only need to look at this for your winning vendor. Well, like I said, you might do it in advance or you might do it with the winning vendor, but if any of the titles that they have, they can't put other titles on your project that aren't on our website. They can add them, there's a process, but they can't do that. They can't submit to you something that's not on here. And then if their dollar amount is higher for that same title than what is on our site, then they need to be eliminated from the process because they exceeded the reasonableness of price. Some of them have hundreds of titles, some of them have one title.
I know one problem we've had is like, Congress comes back and say that it's been approved. It seems like it takes a week to get that kind of stuff.
So there is a process, you know, when we send them their fully executed contract, it takes a while for us to get our entire contract award document done, get the outer page of this done, get the insurance matrix updated, and then once all those documents are sent to our people to put it on the web, it does take a little bit of time.
You're also batching them too. It's not just every
Right.
time, every single word. You wait till you have 3 or 4 and then put them on the website.
That's great.
Oh, you haven't done that?
No, we have, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's pretty
Well,
good.
that might be the problem. Sometimes we're looking for stuff that we're trying to get out because we end up with something that we have to require. And you guys not put them up right away, because we're getting told by the contractor, hey, you got approved.
You're using this contract or centralized contracts in
Both.
general?
It's both. Yeah.
Well, some of the vendors also, when they send in their executed signature page and it hasn't been fully executed by us,
These are the
think
ones
that
you
it's,
guys send them
yeah.
letters saying they, you know, they've been.
yeah, well, it takes time. It's as simple as that. There is no overnight way of
No,
processing
but I
that.
mean, I've gone on leave. It's
Yeah.
still not be done.
Could be that we sent the letters to them, but we still need to do the letters back to contact.
We'll try and do better.
Yeah.
Moving on.
And those
Yeah,
are
yeah.
both sides,
Yeah.
and that's what I was wondering.
Mark, it's a two-step process too.
Yeah.
Vendors are notified that they might have an approved contract, but they're also notified that it's not effective to notify the authorized users until it is up on our OGS website. So they might be getting a little bit anxious to do business with you, but they have not been authorized to really market that contract to the authorized users until it is
But then
up
when your
on our
contract's up on the
website.
site, it says, well, when they told me, hey, they were technically approved. It's just not on the site.
They are not technically approved until they are on our website, is what we're just trying to, help you
Well, I mean, I always have
understand.
to wait for that, 'cause I always have to wait for the contract, for price of meeting.
Back
Okay.
out of this, Kelly, and we'll look at some of the other ones real quick.
Where do you want to go?
Let's go to the template page. Yeah. This is where all of our documents are listed. There's the, I think it's a 6-page document, how to use. We have the mini bid participation interest document, the mini bid template itself. We have the financial response template, the no cost change template, and then the enhancement request. These are all already made up for you, so if you have to make these changes within your project under this contract, use these documents. Everybody using the same documents will keep the contractors as well familiar with these types of things. If you want to just click on the mini bid template, because that's one of the important ones here. There are instructions, there are gray fields that you can type in, there's instructions in italics. You're supposed to delete the instructions before you send it out to the vendors, that's okay, to the contractors, but we feel that we incorporated most of everything that you need here. We can change this document if you're having a problem with it, if we forgot something, if you want to, you think we should incorporate something else, by all means, send the feedback to the contract manager, and we'll take a look at it. But once again, if you can just insert things here, if something doesn't apply to you, you can delete it and just say NA. You can either take it out altogether or just say NA for that particular section, so that the numbering remains the same for the contractors when they start to look at these things.
And I just want to make one other point. The vendors had asked as well, when you send out a mini bid, to please put PBITS in the subject matter, so they know that it's coming, that not just mini bid SLR 123, put PBITS mini bid SLR 123, so they know it's a PBITS contract.
Mini bid.
Mini bid, right.
All right, Cal, if you can back out of that. So that's where the templates are, yes?
Yes, we're gonna make everything available to anybody who registered for this. We're gonna send them an email. We're also recording it. And so if the video's of good quality, we'll post it on our website as well.
So a lot of these things that we're saying today are recommendations of how to use our contract. We know that it's not for everyone, for every procurement that you do. We haven't included everything that can be included or should be included in here, but we think this is a great starting place for you. And we're always willing to talk to you about what happens. We're not in the business of policing it to say, hey, would you look at this and tell us if we did it right? But if you have specific questions that you need help with, we certainly like to try and help you with that. Who's going to have the last question? Can we go now? All right. Thank you very much.